Welcome to this week's edition of Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Chi-Chen Lo. Taiwan has been through the longest 39-year martial law rule in the world. As a result of democratization and liberalization, the human rights situation in Taiwan has been improving. Still, there are many problems. So what are the things that we can do to improve our human rights record? And this is the topic we are hoping to discuss today. In today's program, we are very delighted to invite Rebecca Fan, Director of Taiwan Association for Human Rights, to share with us their views and their tasks and campaigns. Ms. Huang, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
So tell us more about Taiwan Association for Human Rights.
We usually call Taiwan Association for Human Rights as TAHR for the initial. And it was founded in 1984. Mm-hmm. It is still to this day one of the oldest independent NGO for mm-hmm. human rights in Taiwan. And as if you are familiar with Taiwan's history mm-hmm. during that era, it is before the martial law was lifted in 1987.
That's right.
Because we were founded in 1984. Mm-hmm. And given that backdrop, you can imagine the difficulties and the challenge mm-hmm. for such organization to operate. Yeah. Therefore, if you look at the development, the organizational development mm-hmm. of the TAHR, you can see that the first 10 years, we are pretty much existing as an underground organization. Mm-hmm. There are many reasons, and one of that is the legal backdrop and mm-hmm. the political climate, as mm-hmm. you can imagine.
So who were the key members of the TAHR?
Well, at the early stages, as I mentioned before, that was the martial law era. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the focus of our work is focusing on releasing political prisoners mm-hmm. and other civil and political rights campaign. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the members or the initial founding members yeah. of our organization are the so-called 党外, yeah. or the members who
outside the KMT, you know?
Outside the KMT regime, correct. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you will see a lot of the members or our board members, founders, they're mostly the 党外 activists mm-hmm. who advocate for civil and political rights. Mm-hmm. So we campaign for prisoners who are under the threat of extrajudicial executions mm-hmm. or who are political prisoners mm-hmm. Under KMT.
Yeah. So what are the mandates of the Taiwan Association for Human Rights, TAHR?
Yes. If you look at the mandates, well, first you have to look at the development of TAHR. I mean, it's the oldest NGO for human rights. It's been established for over 20-some years now. Mm-hmm. And it has gone through different stages. Mm-hmm. Mainly you can look at it from 3 different stages. Mm-hmm. And that history very much reflects the human rights movement and democratization movement in Taiwan. Yeah. The first stages, you can pretty much look at it from 1984 to 1995, mm-hmm. the first 10 years, which, as I mentioned earlier, is focusing on political and civil rights. Mm-hmm. And then from 1995 on, that's the post-martial law era. Yeah. That means that there are more, well, not to say that during the martial law era there weren't a lot of individual activists fighting for human rights. Yeah. But in the organizational type of way mm-hmm. or in terms of institutionalization mm-hmm. of human rights campaign, you can say that started with TAHR. Yeah, that's right. So through 10 years, a lot of the human rights standards in accordance with international human rights mm-hmm. mechanisms yeah. or international covenants mm-hmm. such as Universal Declaration for Human Rights. Yeah. Those concepts and those principles gradually were known to the general public in Taiwan. Yeah. That is because of the members of our organization has been conducting seminars, human rights education workshop, mm-hmm. and telling people all those informations. Mm-hmm. Because if you remember the peculiar situation of Taiwan, isolated from involuntary isolation from the international community, especially after 1971, yeah. Withdrawal from UN membership, we are very much withdrawn from the core development of human rights system.
Yeah.
So in terms of information or knowledge about the human rights development, we are very much isolated from that.
Yeah.
So to do human rights work is pretty difficult. Just from getting information could be quite a task at that
So
stage.
what are the key activities you do engage yourselves in? You organize street demonstration or organizing seminars
Well,
and so on?
at the first 10 years, most of our work is by public speech, seminar, and writing, publishing, and that sort. And the post-martial law era, that would be roughly 1995 to 2004. The second stage, there are a lot of changes in the Taiwanese society, and the development of civil society has progressed. For example, in 1995, well, the formal establishment of the Judicial Reform Foundation was actually in 1997. That was also established through this group of activists for human rights. But because at the first stage, like I mentioned, we are seeking political and civil rights. But the second stage is, of course, you have to understand human rights is so broad.
That's right.
And political civil rights is not adequate to cover all the grounds concerning human well-being. So our task has broadened after, during the post-martial law era. For example, you have to concern about economic, social, and cultural rights. Those are also included in the international covenant safeguarded by the UN. So at the second stages, as the civil society in Taiwan has progressed, and a lot of the individual organizations start to establish and focusing on particular issues, for example, women's rights, or gays and lesbians' rights, or workers' rights, for example. But TAHR, our organization, remain very much a generalist approach.
But you must have some focused area, right?
Focused area, definitely. At the second stage, like you say, if we do protest, yes, the second stages of our work is more from writing or speech to action. So we will take the issue on the streets. We will organize campaign through public protest, or through press release, or through assembly in connection or in networking with other NGOs, not only at the domestic level, but at the regional level and at the international level.
Let's talk about international networking. I know that your organization, your association, has been very active in reaching out to other human rights groups in the region and in other countries as well. What about the most networking you've been doing in recent years?
I can give you an idea of how many different regional or international organizations we are in association with or in collaboration with. For example, at the regional level, we are a member of an organization called Asian Forum for Human Rights and Development. It's shorthand called Forum Asia. Its secretariat is based in Thailand, Bangkok, Thailand. And it is one of the strongest regional organization in Asia, and you're focusing very much on human rights defenders, issues concerning regional security and rights-based approach and international human rights standard setting, that sort of work. And through them, we will regularly attend international meetings in relation with the UN mechanism and things of that sort. And at the international level, we are also a member of the FIDH. It has a long name. It's called International Federation of Human Rights. Its secretariat is based in Paris, France. It is actually, it's probably the oldest human rights organization in the world. It was founded in 1922. Its mandate is, as you can imagine, all sorts of human rights issues, because two key founders of FIDH were instrumental participants when drafting the Universal Declaration for Human Rights, which was, I think was amended. No, it was enacted in 1948.
So in addition to the improvement of human rights in Taiwan, are you also supporting human rights activities in other countries?
Yes, we do.
Any examples or cases that you can show us?
In the recent cases, for example, the support for Myanmar's democratic movement, or most people call that the Saffron Revolution, through also an international network called GPAC, GPPAC. It is also is it a UN initiative? I suppose you can say that it's an initiative by Kofi Annan, which is focusing on regional security. The full name of GPAC is Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflict. I think that is very important for us, since right now, at this moment we were speaking, there are more than 800 missiles directing at us from China. So regional stability and prevention of armed conflict is very important for us as a member of the international community. So after the a few days after the Saffron Revolution, a group of us, members of GPAC and other NGOs in Taiwan, we have issued a press release in support of the peace demonstration by the monks and other human rights activists in Myanmar. In addition to that, there are also other works that we do that support asylum seeker, maybe from China or from Tibet. These are the kind of work that we do, because earlier you asked what are our mandates. Our mandate basically few points. Number one will be assisting individual cases and assisting victims. Because even though we have a modest office and a small staff, but we have a legal assistant who will take calls or receive emails. For example, my department will receive emails from overseas or from foreigners in Taiwan, whether foreign workers or international personnel who reside here for work or whatnot, but running into a human rights violation or felt human rights issues, they would like to have consultation with the organization or some professionals. So we will also provide that. So assisting individual cases and victims, we run a mandate.
Apparently, your organization has been doing a lot of works, activities.
Yes.
But you are a very small organization, right?
Exactly. Imagine that.
How can you manage to work so hard and try to do as many things as you can?
Well, should I say we do our best?
most of it are volunteers, right?
It's not sufficient. Well, actually, this is the beauty of democracy and civil society, because each individual staff at different NGOs, we work hand in hand and we help each other. For example, TAHR is working in close association with Judicial Reform Foundation, which I was what I had mentioned earlier, because judicial reform is very much important for us. Once you get into individual cases or work on issues, you will start to see there are a lot of structural problems that might be the result of inadequate policy, lack of policy, or bad policy. So policy campaign or monitoring is very important for us. So we work closely with Judicial Reform Foundation and other human rights organizations or focusing on humanity, like 人本教育基金会, Foundation for Human Education. And there are other organizations that are focusing on different rights that I mentioned earlier, migrant workers, or what we call foreign bride. So through collective work, I think collective work is a key word for us, because every NGO is working with limited resources and shortage of human resources or not. Another important thing for us is that maybe a lot of people have the impression that maybe for one organization to exist or to sustain itself, you need fundings. And where you get the fund, can you keep your independence to do the kind of work that you wanted to do, especially when you are monitoring government? How can you keep yourself neutral or be independent? That's the key for us. So we very clearly stated in our constitution that all the staff or board members, you shouldn't have political affiliations. Or once you decided to join a political campaign or election, then you need to resign from the board.
So you have to maintain your neutrality and
independence. That's very important. In terms of funding, we also maintain very much independent. Our funding resources is mainly from individual donations and membership fees, along with sales of publications.
So you don't receive any grant from the government?
We might do joint project or commission on individual cases, but generally our funding is from individual donation who believe in our work and given us the trust to carry out the work. So we value that independence very much.
So we talk about the history, the mandates, and the activities of the Taiwan Association for Human Rights. So when we come back, we will talk about the human rights situation in Taiwan and what are the problems we are facing and what are the things that can be done to fix those problems. Don't go away. Stay with us. Welcome back to Taiwan Outlook. Our guest today is Rebecca Fang, Director of International Affairs of Taiwan Association for Human Rights, TAHR. Ms. Fang, we've been talking about the goals and the text, the works of the TAHR. And what are the key issues now you are focusing on right now in terms of this current political and civil environment in Taiwan?
Okay, I guess I can give you a few pointers in terms of some of the key issues that we've been working on so far. But when you're talking about NGO work, sometimes you have to take a look at the current state of civil society. For example, are there any legal barriers still existing for NGOs to operate within the country? There are indeed such things in Taiwan, but not many people will notice it, or unless you run into it and got arrested. For example, one of the key value for democracy is that you have the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of association, assembly. Then you look at the existing law in Taiwan. For example, in order to have freedom of association, you need to look at the Civil Organization Law, COL, which was enacted in 1942, totally outdated, but still used today to restrict and regulate civil society organizations in Taiwan. You don't have to look too far into that text to see that it's totally against our constitutional rights. Because if I may read you one of the articles, Article 2 of COL reads that civil organizations are not allowed to promote communism or other isms that advocate against unity of the nation and national territory, which is against human rights, freedom of speech, correct?
That's right.
Another very important law that regulates NGOs or public activities is the Assembly and Parade Law. Which was enacted after the martial law was lifted. Yes. And this law is also against constitutional rights guaranteed to its citizens. Let me give you just a little idea of how it works. You will see how inappropriate that law is. For example, the article mentioned within that law, I think it's better that you know how it works. I don't have to go into the details of the articles. According to the police discretion, the police force is given the right to order any assembly to dismiss itself without any legal ground. There is never any monitoring mechanism for such police discretion in place. And second, according to the Assembly and Parade Law, people are only allowed to assemble at public arena for 30 minutes. Anybody who had go on street and parade or protest know that 30 minutes is not enough. But after 30 minutes, then you're illegal. And third, in order to assemble in public arena, one needs to apply for official permit prior to scheduled time. Otherwise, the event would be considered as illegal and being charged for committing a crime. In event, another thing is that for international personnel, for example, if you're a foreigner, if you join a public protest or a parade on the street, you can quietly join the crowd, yet you cannot speak. If you speak, you are illegal. And yes. So tell me, how many rights have already violated just by telling you how the assembly and parade law works? So already you have strong evidence showing that, I want to use the word backward, but I also want to be positive here because I believe Taiwan is working towards a more progressive and democratic society. And it realized how outdated a lot of the policies or laws currently existing is still in place. I would like to think that it will have the courage and strength to amend it or make a better law.
Apparently, these are things about so-called relics or legacies of the old days, you know, the authoritarian period and so on. Arguing for the amendment to those laws or even abolishing some of the laws. But what are the political realities we are facing right now? In other words, how can we fix the problem by going through this kind of current process of amending laws?
Then this I will follow up on the previous conversation we had about our mandate, because another important mandate of our work is to monitoring policy making or to promote and campaign for amendment, legislative amendment. Through the process of taking care of individual cases, we start to notice a lot of structural problems in the society or at legal level. So we will work with other NGOs collectively to campaign for amendment on particular issues. For example, we have been part of many different alliances or coalitions. Just to give you an idea of some of the collective work that we do. For example, for protection of personal data and privacy issues, we have collectively joined the Alliance for Personal Data Protection. And another one is on the death penalty issues. We are part of the, we are also a key member and part of the Taiwan Alliance to end the death penalty. And on the issues of, I mean, migrant workers is one of the top 3 issues in our contemporary society today. So we are part of the coalition, the Alliance for Human Rights Legislation. And there are also other ones, for example, the parade, assembly and parade law that I mentioned earlier. So we are part of the coalition to revise the bad policy we named APL. And then another one will be the Alliance for the Promotion of National Human Rights Constitutions. No, I'm sorry, National Human Rights Institutions. This is one of the important work, also a UN initiative, which was led at the domestic level. The campaign or promotion to establish a national human rights institution was pushed by 22 NGOs led by our organization TAHR. And we also have drafted a National Human Rights Commission bill for the legislative year to consider, and we are hoping that you will adopt when we submitted the bill. However, it is not going anywhere at the moment. But we truly believe that in order to improve the human rights standards in accordance with international standard setting or principles, it is necessary to establish a National Human Rights Commission in Taiwan, which is following the so-called Paris principles that emphasize the participation of NGOs and the independence of the National Human Rights Commissions.
Let's talk about death penalty. You know, it has been a very controversial issue in Taiwan, but also in other countries as well. How do you think that this issue has been progressing in Taiwan?
There are actually strong moral and political will in Taiwan in support of abolishing death penalty. As I recall, in 2000, especially when the President Chen Shui-bian was giving the inaugural speech, one of his key points concerning human rights policy is that he would like to see our country working towards abolishing death penalty. And this year, well, actually last year, and up until now, we already, well, if this year we also have 0 execution, then we will have 2 years in a row without executing any death inmates, which is actually following the international trend on universal moratorium. If you notice the recent UN development at the General Assembly, there are over 100 countries sign on to the universal moratorium, meaning that maybe this will be an intermediate step towards abolition. So for those countries who still who are hesitating to abolishing death penalty, they could decide. They can decide that they will stop executions for now, and then continue to debate about the final abolition of death penalty. And I can give you the number in terms of how many people voted in support of universal moratorium. At the last month, when we had the UN General Assembly meeting, there are 99 countries voted in support of a universal moratorium. And among those that vote against it, there are China, the US, Russia, and some other countries. And among the many member states at the UN, you have 99 in support of moratorium, 52 countries in against, and 33 who didn't participate in the vote. Which means that this voting process or the result, even though it's not legally binding, but it expressed such a strong message to the world that abolishing death penalty is an international movement.
That's right.
Because death penalty is such an inhumane way of punishment, capital punishment, and it is really against human rights values that we believe. So unfortunately, Taiwan is not joining in such an international trend, not yet. But at the civil society level, for example, our organization, TAHR, we already signed up to in support of the universal moratorium, which was campaigned by Amnesty International and the World Coalition to end death penalty.
Do you think our society in general is ready for the abolition of the death penalty, from the public opinions and so on?
I think, like you said, it is a controversial issue and very much a moral debate for many. But public debate on the issue is still in the process and very much needed. I think any kind of issues, as long as there's a dialogue, people can express their concerns and their views either from the victim's family's point of view or from human rights point of view. I think dialogue and continued conversation and debate is healthy. But unfortunately, on this particular issue, oftentimes you will see our media tend to take extreme position as if these two sides are against each other, which is not true. It's false impression. For more information, I would encourage people to
engage in debate,
go not only engaging the debate, but also come out and join the conversation. Not only TAHR, but also the Alliance to End, Taiwan Alliance to End Death Penalty. There is a website full of rich information, the latest international news, not just from the UN, but from other countries. Because so far, there's already 130 countries abolished death penalty. And against a lot of people's suspicion, those countries that no longer exercise death penalty, their crime rate didn't go up. So there are more statistics and numbers and facts for people to look into if you take a look at the website of our alliance.
Yeah. A broader issue that is related to the death penalty issue is the so-called judicial reform in Taiwan. What are the key issues that do you think is so critical to the judicial reform in Taiwan?
Well, for that aspect, there are so many work that need to be done. But just to give you a key case that sort of reflect the progress or lack of progress in the area of judicial reform, that is a trio case. In Taiwan, we often refer to this case as Su-an or Su-jian-he-an, but at the international level, it is mostly known as the Xizhi trio because the case concerns 3 young men who were wrongly accused of murder, rape, and other type of other crime that were sentenced, were carried out by, were deserving the capital punishment. But this case has been going on, this year is actually the 17th year. It's probably the longest, well, some say there are other cases that are worth noting as well. But this particular case, it is controversial and is internationally known. For example, the FIDH, the oldest human rights organization in the world, it also caught their attention, and they have visited Taiwan in 2005 and issued a report, particularly on this case, in 2006. People can visit our website to look into the report. And Amnesty International also, throughout the years, have been monitoring this case. Why does this case attract so many international attentions? There are the following reasons. One is that it looks at or examines Taiwan's criminal procedure code. And it also examined a lot of the principles that supposed to safeguard individual rights. For example, the principle or the presumption of innocence. That is, you are not guilty until you're proven so. But during the old days, which is really not too far from today, Taiwan still exercised the unbelievable principle that is, you are guilty until you are proven not guilty.
That's right.
Which is very much against what we believe today and against international principles and standards. Another one is coercive.
Well, there are many other judicial problems that are being revealed by that case. So when we talk about, we'll come back, we'll talk about the details of this case and how, what are the problems, legal problems, judicial problems that revealed from that case. So to go away, stay with us. Welcome back to Taiwan Outlook. Our guest today is Rebecca Fang, Director of International Affairs of TAHR, Taiwan Association for Human Rights. Ms. Fang, we've been talking about the Xizhi Trio case, which revealed a lot of judicial problems we are facing right now. So what are the other legal and judicial problems we are facing?
Well, for the Xizhi Trio case, I could probably name 3 of the key debates. And of course, this case only revealed part of the problem, and there are still a lot of room for improvement. And for this one, the Shizi Trio, mostly there are three major debate or issues. One is capital punishment, but the controversial death penalty, we already discussed it already. Another debate and controversy lies on the coercive obtained confession. For example, until this day, our court system still heavily relied on confession. Confession could be the only evidence for the court or for the judges to decide this person is guilty or not guilty. I mean, the forensic medicine has improved and advanced so progressively today, but our development of forensic medicine has not catch up with the international standard. Therefore, they could rely on a confession as the only evidence. And this case clearly showed that the reason why the verdict on June 29th by the High Court overturned the 2003 innocence verdict and resentenced the three men with death penalty is because, again, it used the coercive confession as sole evidence against the inmates, which in any standard at international level is not acceptable. So we even invited the former UN Special Rapporteur against torture, Professor Theo van Boven, to join us at the court to do the court observation. He will publish an article on the case, particularly to discussing the three issues: capital punishment, coercive obtained confession, and presumption of innocence. I think these are the principles in accordance with the international standards.
As we know that the court system is heavily influenced by authoritarian rule of the martial law period. So there are also other relics or legacies of the authoritarian period. What are the other problems?
Other ones would be, for example, recently we are working with Judicial Reform Foundation along with other NGOs on the campaign for 法官法, meaning the Judges Act or Judges Law. Because right now, this profession has no regulation whatsoever. And there's also no monitoring system to examine the judge's performance, or if there is any violation of protocol or violation of certain professional standards or principles, then the judge is responsible. Currently, those regulations are lacking. So the Judges Law campaign has been going on for 10 years now. It is still there, sitting there without going anywhere. And we are really hoping that such an important legislation needs to be done so we can normalize the court system. And for the advancement of our legal environment, I think it's for the betterment. In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, the migrant workers' well-being or migrants' rights, there are also legislations concerning their well-beings. I mean, we are all human beings, but somehow they are treated as not human at all, which if we pride ourselves, the Taiwanese citizens, as a member of the world citizenship or the international community, how could you treat another human being as less human?
That's right.
So racial discrimination or discrimination at level of gender, ethnicity, class, or education or nationality is legislations concerning migrants or the so-called foreign bride. I mean, women are traded as products at the market. How can we accept that kind of things happening here.
That's right.
And once they entering our country, they contribute their life, they become parents, they give birth to a child, and that child is a future citizens of our country. How could you not look after them and treat them as less than second citizen?
That's right.
I think that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So a lot of legislation need to be done.
Yeah. December 10th is the International Human Rights Day. And as we know that you've been, organizing all kinds of annual events.
Yes,
for that
because
particular event.
TAHR is actually, TAHR was founded on December 10th, 1984. So every year since 1999, around this time, we will organize events. For example, we will do the top 10 human rights news reviews. We will give a review of the whole year, the key human rights news that concern our societies, and give analysis and also campaign for better awareness about those key issues concerning our society. In addition to that, we also publish Taiwan Human Rights Annual Reports, which is still one of the outstanding work in this area. We were hoping that if the National Human Rights Commission is finally established in Taiwan, then they could do the annual report at their level, and then TAHR as an NGO could monitoring and do a comparative study on that. But unfortunately, we still are waiting for the National Human Rights Commission. So we'll continue to do the annual reports and hoping that the government or the state will.
As a non-governmental organization, it must be very difficult for NGO to survive, to finance itself and so on.
Yeah, so we welcome everyone to join our work, and you can donate time, energy, or funding. That would be wonderful.
Have you been recruiting young people to participate in your work and so on?
Yes, human rights education has always been a key mandate of our organization. So every year we will conduct human rights workshop, and particularly focusing on university students or even younger students. So beginning, we usually will coincide with the semester calendar. So the upcoming one will be next year during the spring semester. And the issues will depending on every year. Maybe this year there's a particular key issue, maybe migrant workers issue has come up, like there are a lot of crucial cases that need people's attention, or the ongoing campaign, for example, the Shizhi Trio that we talked about, which is a keystone for the judicial reform in Taiwan, or the leprosy patients' rights case, the Lawson case, which also is an ongoing campaign. Another campaign is to abolish death penalty or in support of universal moratorium. All this ongoing work could be a curriculum for the human rights workshop.
Looking back, what are the most important achievements that you feel most proud of, of the TAHR history?
Well, I don't know if I'm in the position to say that, but from my perspective, because I'm probably too junior to make a statement on that, but I really valued the kind of strength and the accumulative archive of the historical. I mean, if you look at the development of this organization, it really reflects the history and development of human rights movement and democracy movement in Taiwan. But so far, you don't really see a lot of people look at the organization this way, because right now, another project of ours will be the establishment of a human rights database or human rights archive. Because since 1984 until now, we have received or taken care of tons of issues, individual cases from the prisoners until now, the broader issues of human rights. You can see how Taiwanese society developed. So it has such a historical value. And also, until this kept its independence and stick with its principles and mandate. I admire that a lot. That's why I joined the work.
Yeah. In addition to compiling or collecting human rights data, archives, and so on, so looking to the future, what are the things that you are hoping to accomplish in the near future?
Well, there are still lots of campaign that's ongoing, and another important mandate of ours is to localize international instruments, either through amend the current legislations or constitution in accordance with international human rights mechanisms. That all need to take a long time already. Also, given the peculiar situation of Taiwan, which is not yet a member of the UN, even though we are trying very hard to re-entering into the international community and the international human rights system. So right now, given that circumstances, Taiwanese government or whoever is the ruling government has no obligation to follow or to restrain themselves or to follow the international mechanisms or the covenants or a lot of the principles being signed by so many countries who are member state of the UN. Environmental issues or other indigenous people's rights issues. For example, in September, the Universal Declaration for the Indigenous People's Rights had finally been adopted not only by the Human Rights Council, also by the General Assembly of the UN, which recognize indigenous people's customary law and other collective rights. Because if you know, the latest development of human rights is much broader than the so-called third wave human rights movement. Then environmental rights, rights to shelter, indigenous people's rights, all those need to be considered. But given those standards at an international level, if Taiwanese government or whoever is a ruling government has no obligation to follow that standard, then it's useless.
That's right.
So as NGO, we felt obligated to tell the ruling government that these are the standards you need to observe, and you need to localize those principles and rules into the domestic legislations.
That's right. Ms. Fan, thank you very much for coming to our program, and thank you for your works. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And that's Rebecca Fan, Director of International Affairs of Taiwan Association for Human Rights. And thank you for watching Taiwan Outlook, and see you next week.